What are the 4 main temperaments of the 16 personalities? What I'm going to describe to you in this video is like the easiest way of dividing the 16 types into 4 distinct groups. I'm excited to be telling you about this because it starts to really unlock how to pick out what types people might be. Before we continue, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. You probably haven't heard of it before. Squarespace is the place for you to make websites with an easy-to-use interface. Ooh, I'm rhyming here. More about them later. Okay, so 4 temperaments. First up, a couple things. Usually, you see the 16 personalities, when they talk about temperaments, they talk about like NF, NT, then they'll say SP, SJ. That's not what I'm talking about. And if you want to see a video where I talk about like the NF, NT, and how the different types communicate differently, you can check out that video right here in this card, if I remember to put it. And of course, a disclaimer as always that when we're talking about, especially like grouping the types into 4 groups, we're making generalizations, and not everyone of a certain type is going to fit into every single thing I say, but generally these are like the archetypes of what each of these 4 groupings looks like, each of the 4 temperaments within the 16 personalities. And the way I'm doing it is by looking at the first and last letter. So we have the EJs, the EPs, the IJs, and the IPs. Those are the 4 temperaments that we're going to be covering in the video. Let's just go through it. Let's just jump right into it. So first we go for the EJs. So like this is obvious, but let me just point it out anyway. We're talking about ENFJ, ESFJ, ENTJ, ESTJ. So they either have dominant extroverted feeling or extroverted thinking. So one of the things that I see EJs being naturally, like what they gravitate towards, is leading. Now this doesn't mean that they're going to be, that they're like wanting to be president or something, but they just naturally kind of fill voids when no one is leading a group. They'll just be like, okay guys, how do we get this done? Let's all work together. Let's move towards this. EJs are naturally group oriented. And sure, they can work on their own, but I think they just naturally like to assemble a team around them, or, you know, step into a situation where there's a team there already, so they can have people to work with, other people whose strengths they can leverage. Of course, everyone can be a leader. I'm just talking about the natural inclination to like kind of go into this leader role without even really thinking much about it. Doesn't mean they're a good leader. Doesn't mean they're an ambitious leader, just means that they kind of assume this role. And a few things that they would do in this role is trying to get everyone on the same page, whether that's in a feeling sense or a thinking sense. Like, how can we all work together to make everyone here happy? How can we all work together to get the results that we all want? Another thing EJs will naturally gravitate towards is organizing other people. Like, you know, we're already saying they're leaders. They're in charge of people. They're like, you do this, you guys work together. Let's sort everyone out here. They also will tend to push other people to contribute more, because that's what extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking, they need the fuel. The fuel that FE and TE work off of is other people contributing ideas and, you know, how they feel about things and how they value things. So the EJs keep pushing everyone like, well, you got to contribute to the group. So as you can see, the focus of EJs is other people. Let's jump over to the EP types. So once again, Mr. Obvious here, ENFP, ESFP, ESTP, ENTP. The EPs are out there always looking for new possibilities. They don't just like to stay where they are and stick with, you know, what we know already. You know, I talk about this quite a bit when I talk about how in my last video, how do the 16 personalities see the world. You can check out that in this card right here, where I talk about the J versus P types, and then I go into, you know, you combine that with the intuition or sensing and how that all works out. Interesting video. People loved it. Check it out. So you can think of the EPs like explorers, right? Always looking for new stuff. They're out there. They're just randomly grabbing new ideas, new things, new experiences. But I think another thing about EPs is that they're there to disrupt. They're not, I mean, not maliciously, of course, but there's like a status quo. There's something that's always been the same, and they're there to try to find a new way. They're there to disrupt the flow of things and be like, hey, why don't we break out of this box here? Let's get outside of what we're normally doing. You can also think of it as, I mean, a lot of these words are very similar, but uncovering, like they're always looking to like pry up the rocks and like we got to shine a light on everything. We got to see everything that we can. So like every type can communicate, right? But I think the EPs, especially when you look at their communication, they are communicating freely, like just get all the information that I can out there without much organization. It's just like, here's the information, here's what I've seen, here's all the new stuff that I found. I was exploring, here's what I found. Of course, as you can see through this, the EPs have a gathering focus. They're oriented towards taking in more and more. All right, so we're halfway through. Let's go ahead and support this channel and stop and see if YouTube would like to show a commercial. Thanks for sitting through that. And while we're here, let me tell you about this video sponsor, Squarespace. So I said, you've probably never heard of them before, right? Squarespace, the intuitive website building platform. How are you going to get people out in the world to know about your business, or to know about what you think? You know, you have a blog, or to know who you are as a writer or artist or whatever. Well, you do it with a website. Of course, super easy to use. You just go to squarespace.com, you look through the templates that are there, you pick a template that you like, you just start clicking, dragging, dropping, typing. You got a website, baby, and it looks good without you even trying. Of course, Squarespace has cool A-word features, like the content on your website can be pushed to your social media, and something I think is really cool is you can create member areas so that you can monetize your content. Go to squarespace.com today and start a free trial, and when you're ready to start up your beautiful, stunning website, go to squarespace.com/FrankJames, get 10% off your first website or domain. All right, let's get back to talking about these 4 temperaments. We've covered the first 2, we got 2 more to go. That's math. All right, so next let's do the IJ types. INFJ, ISFJ, ISTJ. What's the other one? INTJ. Oh my gosh, the INTJs are gonna be mad. All right, so the IJs, they're really there to keep things running. Like the IJs are good at just like keeping the wheels turning, taking what other people, you know, what the EPs have found and what the EJs are trying to do with organizing everyone. The IJs are good at being a bit more like, okay, I got it. I know how to keep us all running as a well-oiled machine, because IJs are very much about like organization, systems, and making things efficient. Now another thing, I talked about how the EPs communicate where they just like blah, give you a bunch of stuff for you to sort out. The IJs communicate in a different way where it's a lot more teaching oriented. And I mean, the EJs can do this too. Anyone can do this, but the IJs are like really have a tendency towards always trying to make teachable moments. And when they are communicating, it's very structured because they're trying to just give you the basics. They're trying to give you everything with a point. I think the IJs are also pretty good at mediating people. Now that's, you know, between people, getting people to work together, because the IJs, the EPs are good at this too, but the IJs are good at seeing both sides of things, seeing, you know, differing perspectives and kind of keeping them on the same playing field and being able to sort through them easily. With the IJs, if you ever need like a system to be organized, like come up with a way to do things, I think the IJs will be the ones who naturally gravitate towards doing that, towards creating the system. That's how their minds work. It's like, how can we systematize all this? How can we make sure that this flows smoothly? So as you can see, the IJs have an organizational focus. All right, now we come to the IP types, which I think are some of the most interesting types. Okay, INFP, ISFP, INTP, ISTP. IPs gravitate towards being individualists, like being their own person, and they are accountable to themselves first and foremost. And I think because of that, they tend to just naturally go down their own pathways. They find new paths They can be innovative. They can have like a vision that's very unique that no one else has. And I differentiate this a bit from the EPs. I say they're looking for new possibilities, right? EPs are out there looking for the new, trying to uncover things. But they're doing it kind of like I just want to see what it is. I don't like, like, to them it's just like, I got to keep gathering, cool. But the IPs, I think, are a bit more like, I've got to go down this path for me. I've got to explore it for me. Because they are dominant introverted feelers or introverted thinkers, it's really all about what direction do I choose to go in with my life. It's much more personal. Of course, as IPs go down their own path, doing things the way they want to because they're accountable to themselves first and foremost, you know, they can be an interesting kind of leader because they have figured something out for themselves. They've gone down a path that they wanted to go, and they could be like, oh, hey guys, you can follow me down here if you want to. IPs, because of that, tend to be creative, not necessarily artistically, but just like doing things in a way that maybe no one else would do it. So with the IPs, it's a self-focus, and it's not so much like I'm all about myself, that's all I care about, but it's like, because they have that thing of their internal compass is what's most important to them, they can care about other people. Sure, they can take care of other people, but they're like, I am the one steering the ship. I've got to do what I think is the right thing to do. I've got to go down my path. And so for that reason, I would say the IPs have the self-focus. Let me know if there's any other things you want to know about the 16 personalities in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And until next time, stay cool and attractive.